Yeah, in any case, how have you been doing?
How have I been doing?
Yeah, just in League and stuff. Just anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to mention?
Well, I haven't really picked up League again yet. Like the last time I played was probably 2 or 3 months ago at this point.
Okay.
You know, it it ended how I've described before
Right.
in fits of rage and
Okay.
me deciding I needed to take a break.
Yes. Right. So let's, in that case, have our session be about the frustration. And I assume, because I sent you the mental game of poker and also the two videos
Yep.
going. Yeah. Have you, first of all, have you watched the videos and have you maybe read some of the stuff in the book?
I have not. Well, I looked at the book, but decided I didn't want to dive into it yet because it's kind of long. But I went through both videos and started taking notes about the questions and things suggested in those videos. Obviously, I haven't
Mm-hmm.
had any gameplay to
Of course.
analyze recently, but
Sure.
I have my past experience.
And from your past experience in relation to those two videos, what stood out to you? Like, what can you point to in your experience that you can say, yeah, this video really describes this thing right here that I experienced? Is there anything you can exactly point to? Something that stood
Um,
out the most in the videos?
I would say the discussion of tilt really stood out because I found that while some of the examples were definitely more rare, the different tilt examples
Yeah,
are all things that I've experienced
right.
personally.
So that sounds good. So let's in that case start by doing this. So the way I like to usually open up verbal sessions is I start by sort of asking you questions surrounding the things that you feel going into the game,
Right.
stuff that is relevant to the game. So you could, for example, be experiencing tilt for different reasons, um,
Yeah.
and then we would go into detail about like, okay, wow, what are the different types of tilt you feel? Why do you feel these types of tilt? And then sort of going sort of down the chain of beliefs until we reach sort of a bottom point where then we sort of have nailed down essentially what the real cause of it all is. Like
Right.
what is the core belief that is at play? One moment, I just have to do something real quick here. Right. Okay. Let's continue. So in any case, so as I mentioned, let's begin by just nailing down all the things that you can think of. So tell me, what exactly causes you to tilt, or what do you remember has historically caused you to tilt? Just list all of the reasons, like all of the things that
Well,
come to your mind.
so I guess I can go through the notes I took about
Yes.
my experience with the different forms because that's how I took the notes down.
Yes.
So some examples. Uh, a situation in which I feel tilt is when an opponent gets stronger through something I can't control. Like I was, doing really well in lane, and then my jungler comes and gives my Warrior a kill like for free. Like I'm not even there, and they just die, and now I have less of an advantage in my lane because of something someone else did, and it feels unfair that that enemy is not stronger, even though I was playing really well.
Right.
And that
Okay.
I wrote that down for injustice tilt because that seems like
Yep. I
kind of
I
high.
agree. It's definitely a form of injustice tilt right here. Um, yeah. Anything else you can think of?
So closely related to that, um, especially if I'm playing a main champion, if I'm performing especially poorly, I feel frustrated that like I'm not doing better. Like I expect to be able to perform better than I am, and feel like I deserve to perform better than I am. Which this tends to come out when I'm already tilted. You know, the logic is less sound. Like it doesn't really make that much sense to think that, but when I'm already frustrated, this tends to come out.
Right. Okay.
Another example, like in general, is say I didn't have a very good game, and in the end of game screen, someone flames me or whatever. Like, oh, you're so bad. Stop playing this champion, whatever. you can imagine that tends to be very frustrating, and that can often spark like more aggressive rage, or like I'll try to say something back, and maybe it will, turn into a bit of a flame war, and I'll get more tilted. This doesn't happen in game since I've started disabling chat, but it would happen in game too before I did that.
So, right. So, just to quickly go back here, this is mistake tilt, and I assume
a little bit entitlement.
Entitlement, yes, because specifically you're using the word deserve in this sentence.
Yeah,
and deserve definitely has a connotation towards entitlement, towards something.
Yes,
and we'll definitely talk about that as well in the session. So when someone tells you what to play, and this happens in Champion Select, like you said, because you've muted chat, so it used to happen before in game too, but now it just happens in Champion Select. But it still feels bad. So my question is, what did you categorize this as in terms of tilt? Like, what type of tilt do you think this is?
I put it under revenge tilt.
Okay, why revenge?
Which kind of makes sense. But I guess doesn't necessarily.
I think it makes sense for this reason here, and want to say something back to them. Like, this specific part right here is some type, like that's a type of revenge tilt, because you feel like, because they said this to me and they made me feel bad. Now I have the right, or I feel justified in making them feel bad as well, essentially.
Yeah, I often have an urge to say something back.
And why do you want to say something back to them? What do you think what is the reason for doing that? I'm not talking about like the reason as in like tilt. I'm talking about when you're in that moment where that happens. At that point, what is that version of you, that tilted version of you? What is his reason for saying mean things back to people? So try to think of it like from the perspective of your angry self rather than your current self, essentially.
Yeah, I'm thinking that. I need to think of an answer for a second. So, like, the statements that bother me the most are ones that are kind of personal. Like, Ari's my favorite champion, and I play her a lot. So if they're saying not to play Ari, like if it's something about how badly I played Ari, then I take that more personally because of how much I personify with the champion. Like, they're saying I'm bad at beating myself, basically. And I feel like I have to prove that that's not true, that I am a good Ari player or something like that. Or it can be other champions. I have other mains that I enjoy playing.
Now,
but especially apparent with Ari.
So here's the thing to ask ourselves. Is it really that they are... On a surface level, it may be that they're commenting on the fact that you play Ari, quote-unquote, poorly, according to what they think. And they are directing flame at you from the angle of your main champion. But if we really think about it, does it actually have to be connected to the champion itself? Or could it just be that they're doing it because that's the laziest approach to telling you that you're not necessarily a bad Ari player, but they want to tell you that you're a bad player, period. If we think about it, like, do you think that it's either that they actually do comment about you playing the champion, or that they actually look at you as a player? What do you think?
I mean, yes and no. Because, like, most of the time, this is the only time you ever have and ever will interact with this player. But, well, at least being in low elo. So they have no other understanding of me as a player. So it's hard to see it as an attack on my skill in general when they only have an example of one champion to go off of. So maybe the intent is bad in general, but they reference the champion you're playing because that's the experience they have.
There's other, like, or like, why do you personalize better question here. But why do you personalize their flame as something about you? Secondly, it could be, why do you care to begin with about what they say? These are some potential questions I can think of here. So for now, we'll leave it here. We'll get back to this. The reason why I'm writing this out is because the reason I like this so much is because I can always sort of leave the topic midway through. We can just stop and just look at the bigger picture. That's what I really like about this.
Yeah. We made some headway with that. So
yeah, exactly. And
back
then
to it later.
You don't have to like juggle a lot of thoughts in your mind all the time.
That's right.
Yeah. In any case, any other things you can think of? Any other types of tilt or whatever? Things that cause you to get angry?
If I have a couple bad games in a row, I can experience a bit of desperation. Like, I want to get one good game in. And like, even if the previous games, I was still learning a lot, it's more satisfying to have a game where I at least perform well. So it can be hard to let go of the session if I don't have any good performance during it.
So that's a running bad tilt, and it's also I guess, is it hate losing? I don't. Maybe it isn't.
A little bit. I haven't talked about that yet, but
the reason why I say it's a maybe.
I didn't say that, but I didn't say much on it. I said yes. I hate losing every time.
Oh, okay. Because for some people, it doesn't have to necessarily be that they hate losing. It can be that they don't really care about the result, but their own performance is what really stands out to them. And then it is still a running bad tilt, but it's not due to the outcome of the game. It's due to the overall performance. So then it's like a bit different.
It's definitely both. Like, if I perform well and lose, I don't feel good. If I perform bad and win, I still don't feel good. But if I do both, then I feel good.
Okay. So if I
it feels better if I win.
If I perform well and I win, then I'm fine. Then I'm good. If I perform well and I lose, then you're also good, right? Or slightly less. I don't know. Like
it depends.
Okay, it depends.
Definitely less.
Then it
and sometimes it's actually worse because I was doing well and lost anyway.
Okay.
Sometimes it's more serious when I perform well and lose. But then at the same time, if everything's bad, then I just feel like crap because
my efforts...
there's no positive anything if both are wrong.
If I don't perform well and I lose, then I feel like shit.
Yes, that's awful.
And this is also
like,
true. Is it also true for when you win as well? If I don't perform,
that's kind of like similar to how performing well and losing sometimes sucks more than just losing. If I win, maybe it's because I turned around a little bit and I can feel a little bit better, but at least I won. Like, it's because of the order of operations. Like, I felt bad and then I felt good. Because the last thing I had was something good. It's slightly better.
Right.
But it's still not good because I didn't perform well. Especially if I'm focused on some goal.
Yes. For some people, it can also be the inverse, that this actually feels way worse than this. To elaborate, this is usually, when this feels worse than this, it's usually caused by a slightly unhealthy relationship to variance. As in, I don't know if you've seen this yourself, but oftentimes, for certain people within the community, it can feel better to just run it down and int than to grow as players and eventually get it good enough that you can improve. Because it feels easier to run it down. Because then at least you know that your performance is impacting the outcome of the game. But when you play well, because currently you're not able to impact the outcome of the game, it feels like shit. It feels like it's out of your control, and so you would rather go to the opposite end of the spectrum. You go to the other extreme of running it down every game, just so that you can feel that sense of control within your games. Even if that sense of control is like you literally lose every game, that would feel so much better than to try your best and lose. And that's because you have an unhealthy relationship to variance. So the way that you view... yeah, go on.
No, that is... Well, part of it is a personal value of I really don't like giving up. And like, if I give up, it's in a much more passive sense, like just walking away from it or surrendering. But that's kind of the last straw, is giving up. I won't deliberately make things like I'll be angry and not perform as well, but I won't make mistakes on purpose just to
So
like what you said, I don't do that.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying that you do. I'm just giving an example of like this is like this is something that's actually a real thing, and that it's caused by a there's different sort of philosophies. So like one is like locus of control. You have like a lot of people have an external locus of control, as in they focus on things that are outside of their control as opposed to the things that are within their control. And some people have an internal locus, so they are focusing only on the things within their control and they're ignoring everything else. And obviously the internal is better than the external, because then you are not going to be so emotionally affected by the fact that you lose or that you don't perform well in certain games. Because even for Faker, even for pro players, they are still going to have bad games. One thing I usually point to is the Inchworm model, if you've ever seen that, or also adult learning model. But to explain this, you have your A game and your C game, and then you have the average between the two, which is your B game.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the way that sort of you improve as a player is like an inchworm. So initially you are in this state where it's a bell curve, and you're like, your A game is pretty close to your C game, so you don't really have a lot of things that you can fix, and instead you need to learn new skills. That's when you stretch out, and your A game goes very far forward, but your C game is left behind.
Lags behind. Yeah,
it lags behind.
Because you're learning these new skills, but none of them are unconscious competent yet. So
yes,
you're still just as bad when you're not having a good game, basically.
Yes. And the C game is like, that's when you're only able to do the unconscious stuff. The stuff that you've learned so well that it's like breathing to you. Those are the only things that you can draw upon when you're playing in your C game. And the C game will look different for different players. Like I said, Faker has his own C games. You will have your own
C game. Faker's C game is probably better than my triple S plus game.
Sure. So, and that of course speaks to, the mindset surrounding like sort of failure, how you view failure, like how do you view making mistakes, etc., etc. All of that is really important. So you have your C game, your B game, and your A game, and there's sort of two things that can happen, and one is the most common. So usually when you have this sort of stretched out worm, what a lot of people tend to do is they tend to continue to be in this state of learning new things. And the way I like to think about it is it's like you are like a person here. You're moving your front foot forward, and then you keep moving it forward until you eventually go down into the splits. You literally can't move any further forward by moving this leg. You have to move this leg now. You have to move your back leg. Your back leg has to now catch up to your front leg so that you can take another step. Because literally it's physically impossible to take another step at a certain point.
So like you can't, if you try to learn anything new, you're not going to get any further because you haven't improved enough at the other things that you just learned.
Exactly.
So you have to take more time to improve one of those, so that
Yeah,
that falls under the C game, and now you have a little bit more room to learn something new.
Yes, and that is equivalent to making the worm go a bit more like this. So your C game is starting to catch up to your A game, which also improves your average. For some people, it can be a devastating difference between their A game and their C game. Their C game can be all the way down in like gold, while their while their A game is up in diamond, and so their B game will be sort of around plat.
Right. So they're probably going to be in plat, but they're going to have games where like everyone's questioning why you're in your elo either.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have like
below.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have like this ego thing where you like say, "Oh my god, I'm like outperforming every game. Every game I play, I'm like winning against my laners. Why am I not a higher rank than I am? I'm in plat. What the fuck?"
And then you have a C game.
Yeah, there you go. And then
because you're so hyped up by how well you're doing, you'll just not think about anything.
Right.
Play like
yes. And like, he described in the videos, you have your energy, right? Yep. So you have your focus. So like I guess you can say focus, and you have your energy. And too much energy and too little energy are both things that you want to stray away from. So you don't want to be bored, because then at that point you're not going to perform well, and you don't want to be too high energy, because then you're not going to perform either. Yeah. So both are not so good. In any case, going back to this is what you see very commonly with players that are in these elos, because they have an entitlement to the higher rank, because they feel like their A game is so high, so they should be at their A game. But obviously that's not true. Skill is a range, it's not a fixed point. So it's a range of different types of play that you have in your skill set. So you could either perform really bad, and depending on what that means, that will dictate where your average will sit. And same is true also for your A game. For example, there are players on the other side of the extreme who are, here. Like their A game and C game are so close that improving any further on the C game is going to only generate max this much distance. And that's where you get into sort of diminishing returns.
Right.
So
and
you would
lead to boredom, because you don't have enough that you'll need to work on.
Yes. So that's where you need to then be like, okay, I need to learn new skills. I need to learn new things, so I can stretch out and actually improve my game to go forwards. So this is the other extreme, but this is far less common for most players, because
most players are ambitious.
Yeah, and usually, unless you're pretty far up, like if you're unless you're stage 5, I guess if you use the stage process as an analogy, unless you're at stage 5 or so, then there won't really be a lack of things to learn. Like you don't really have a problem of like, oh, there's not enough things I could learn. No, there definitely is. You just need to actually become competent at them, so you can actually move forward.
So like, because there's so many dimensions to the game, it kind of stretches out your Inchworm, and there's not really a whole lot you can do about it until you learn enough of those fundamentals to kind of get over the hump.
Not only that, but you also need to realize that learning new skills will spread out the amount of focus that you are spending on each thing, which will slow down your overall improvement. And it would be rather more efficient if you just spent all your focus improving on one thing, so that you can get that done with, so that you permanently improve your C game, so that you don't have to worry about this. So you don't necessarily want to end up exactly here. You want to sort of end up here, but not quite all the way here. Because this is like...
You want to be you want to be a partially stretched out worm.
Yeah, partially stretched out. Not all the way. Because if you're all the way, then it's like, okay, you have so many things that you're working on right now. You need to really niche down. You need to like narrow down exactly what you're working on, because that's the real issue. A lot of
These
players.
are all the players playing Zed.
Yes.
That's Zed players.
Yes. So they're trying to work on so many different things, and they're trying to think about, I need to like do all these crazy things with like movement and whatever, and I need to copy what Faker is doing. But they don't actually, they're not methodically going about it. They're just sort of arbitrarily copying what they're seeing without really thinking too much about it. And that's not actually learning, that's just mostly emulating, which, I mean, yes, you can improve from that.
It's useful.
It's useful, yes, but it's not necessarily going to make you consistently better, because then you're not really using critical thinking, and there's not really a process behind it. That's why we have the stages model, because the stages model gives you a process for free, which then helps you do all the all the legwork is sort of taken care of, and you can then spend the most of your time just playing, VOD reviewing, and you don't necessarily have to think too far in depth.
Right.
The biggest trap that a lot of players end up in is that they think too far, or they overthink things. They don't simplify, and that can tend to lead towards, creating bad habits and learning things in a different order that is less efficient. So, like, for example, going into stuff like tethering when you don't even have stage 1 and 2, when you can't even CS and trade at the same time. That would obviously be not a useful way to spend your time.
It's a mistake I often make.
Yes.
A lot of people been better about making, but the more complex, like, I like nuanced mechanics because using them is satisfying.
Yes.
I'm doing something unique that is hard to pull off, so when I do it, it feels good. But
yeah, and
it's easier to do fundamentals.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that we have sort of this down, the thing that this comes down to is, like I said before, you need to accept that you cannot always get the A game. It's not possible. You will never 100% always perform at A game. You will have, most of the time, actually, you will have B games and C games. You will have quite a few A games over the time that you spend playing, but most of the games that you play will be here. Which is why it's not only important to learn new things, it's important to actually learn them to competency, to unconscious competency, so that you can actually pull them off even in your worst games. So that's the thing to realize here. The other thing to realize is that since you do feel better by the fact that you won, that presents some other things, right? Because then we're sort of going into, okay, but why does winning make you feel better, and why does losing make you feel worse? What about that is actually going on? So we can actually already now, we can write down a branch for later. We won't go into it right now, but why...
I already have this part of an answer, so I'll be ready to go.
And worse when you lose. So, can you think of anything else? Any other types of tilt or whatever that you can think of?
So something that's a little bit more focused on running bad tilt is just the phenomenon where if I play League for a month or two or however many, the tilt and frustration becomes more frequent, and eventually it's so bad that I have to quit the game. So that's more solidly into running bad, because all these instances of tilt have accumulated to the point where the tiniest thing sets me off.
That makes sense.
And this is like one of the biggest things that prevent me from making progress in League, because I lose most of the progress I get by the time I recover from that tilt.
It's hate losing, but also like I guess it's plus every other type of tilt combined. It's like a cumulative. Yep. This is like a cumulative debuff that eventually like results in you executing. So like like how Brand has a mechanic with his burn passive where when you reach a certain HP threshold, you instantly die. Like, boom.
Yep.
With the Dark Harvest on top of that as well. So this is similar to that. Tilt is sort of like an acid that if you leave it for too long unattended, it will eventually burn through the thickest metal. And eventually it will
miss
seep out.
Miss 1 CS. That's it, I quit.
That's it. Yeah. So, yeah, okay, anything else? Anything else? Or is this it? Like, is this your tilt profile, essentially?
That's it for tilt.
Okay. Okay, so there's other things, like fear, anxiety, or whatever.
Yep. So,
yes?
most of the rest of the things I don't have a ton about, partly because the tilt is the dominant thing. Like,
right.
While these other issues exist to some degree, I don't know how much because they're overshadowed by.
So it would be much better to spend our time focusing on this than to try to focus on those other things. Yeah, that makes sense.
I can give some detail on them if you think that's useful, or we can go back to this stuff.
For now, let's focus on tilt. Let's make the session about solving the tilt, since we now have a pretty good idea of what's going on. And I think for the other emotions, we can have a separate session on that. But we obviously want to sort of see if the advice I'm going to give you now is going to lead towards new things happening. So maybe you discover something else about what you feel when you go into games. And that can then give us new insight on what maybe the next thing you should work on is.
Okay.
So let's start from the top, like where we began. So it feels unfair that they can get stronger, even though I played really well. Now, this, I think...
There's more to
it. It relates... There's sort of like a red line here that I'm trying to draw here. So this connects in many ways to these things right here. Like this issue up here connects very strongly with this. And the reason why it connects is because you are... Just let's lay this out, right? If you didn't care about win or loss, you didn't care about either one.
It wouldn't matter how strong they are.
It wouldn't matter, exactly. You wouldn't care that they're getting fed, because them getting fed doesn't really like hinder you from improving. It just means that you have to play around that, I guess. But you can still do everything that you would do.
Yep.
So I think this is probably the overarching sort of idea here that we need to fix. So I want to understand... Let's actually not start here. Let's actually start all the way down here. So why do you care about winning or losing? What is it about that?
Well, I guess a very obvious reason is it's ranked. There's a reward or punishment associated with whether you win or lose. If you win, you get rewarded with LP and maybe your teammates being nice to you. And if you lose, you get punished with losing LP and maybe your teammates being an asshole.
Okay, then my next question is, why do you care about the reward? The LP, your teammates maybe feeling good, etc. Why do you care about the reward? Why is that reward good? Like, why do you think it's good? Or why do you think it's desirable for you?
So, like the more simple reasons are like, well, I've played a lot of League of Legends and I take it seriously what my rank is, basically. Like the rank matters to me.
Want to see progress.
Yes, basically. Right.
Not uncommon, LP, by the way. Yep.
Yeah. The LP is an indicator, so seeing it go up is good. It matters to me to see it go up. As for like the teammates, well,
I want to be
accepted. It feels good to be told that you're doing well. Exactly. Like it feels good to get the recognition of doing a good thing. Like, hey, good job. And that is really satisfying.
So now
not having that sucks.
Okay. That's interesting. That's very interesting right there, because, see, that's actually the same reason why you care about this right here.
Yeah.
For the same reason that you take compliments personally, you also take insults personally.
Yep, that makes sense.
So it's sort of like a duality there going on. So I think if we answer this, we'll probably answer most of the stuff here and also here. So
Yeah,
let's continue here. So you I feel, oh whoops, Jesus. I feel good, validated when my teammates tell me I did a good job. So why do you care about this? Why is this something you want? Also, do you think they're specifically telling you that you did a good job, or see, this is definitely related to this right here, because what you are doing when you're personalizing something is you are, because you have perfect information of your life. Essentially, you are operating in your perspective, from your point of view, you are operating with full knowledge of what you have done your entire life. You know your struggles, you know exactly everything about yourself, related to when you've succeeded, when you feel good, when you feel bad. You know about all your failures and all your past successes. And so when they say something to you, you assume that they also operate with the same knowledge, or at least instinctively you'd like to think that they should know that about you. When in reality, obviously, they don't. They have no fucking clue who you are, what your name is, what your, like, birthday is. They have no clue whatsoever who you are, or even what you have done before. They have no idea. But you, based on your knowledge, based on your bias of having that knowledge, you wrongly assume that they should also know the same thing, and they should also not, like, they should take that, all of that into account when they deliver their judgment on you, right?
Sounds a bit ridiculous when you put it that way.
Yeah, but that's really how it is when you think about it. It's like, because you know everything about yourself by definition.
It's hard to ignore it.
Yeah, exactly. Because
To the extent, not even that's true.
duh. Well, sure, yeah, you will obviously forget certain things, like.
But you're gonna know more than anyone ever will, besides you.
Yeah, yes, like sort of. This is sort of true, but yeah, basically, you basically know everything. You will know yourself better than most people. So there is to know about yourself. You wrongly assume that they should take all of that into account as well when they deliver judgment or mean comments. Solution: realize that the other person that the person on the other end has no fucking clue who you are, what you do, or what you have done before. All they know is what's right in front of them in the current moment.
Right. I guess a good example of that, like, is, every once in a while I play with lower skilled friends, and I end up with an opponent that is way weaker than me. Like, I end up in an unfair matchup, and I just, like, with little effort, perform extremely well, and then get a bunch of compliments. Those compliments aren't really fair because me performing so well wasn't fair.
Right.
But they have no idea that I'm a way better player than is appropriate for that match. they don't know. And if they knew that, they would probably be disgusted that I was in the match.
Right.
They wouldn't give that compliment if they knew the reality of the situation.
Right. And that again shows how it's very easy to assume, because of your own knowledge, that everyone else knows the same thing as you do. And so
Right.
the insults here, in the same way that the compliments feel good, because it feels like they know something about you. Oh, they're complimenting you. Oh, they know who I am, and they're complimenting me because I did really well, and based on everything that I've done, this is a great stuff. No, they're not doing that. It's very surface level. It's not at all that deep. It's the same thing also with insults. Insults are equally just very surface level. All that they see, and they will probably ever see, because you won't probably play with them again after that match, is they just see that one individual performance. This one game, that's what they see. That's their sample size. That's literally everything they have to judge you based on.
Can't really make a good judgment with that.
Exactly. So can you expect them to, think like, oh, maybe he's going through? No, they're not going to think that. They're just going to see what you did that game, and based on that sample size and that sample size alone, they only have like 30 minutes with you on average. They will only be there for 30 minutes with you in that game. Based on that, they will make a judgment on you. And you take that personally. And the reason you take that personally is because of your own bias. Because you think that they operate with the same knowledge of who you are as you do. Which isn't true. We can obviously provably show that that isn't the case.
Yeah. So an example in the insult case is like an external example is like when I'm playing with lower skilled friends, they end up with an opponent that's way better than them.
Exactly.
And they play really bad because they are completely out of their skill level. And it's, and then they get insulted for playing bad. But like, I know that insult isn't really fair to them because what I know about the other person is more than that other player would know. And I know that player shouldn't be in that game. And that it's okay for them to be playing that because they don't belong in that game. And if they knew that, they wouldn't get the insult. Or they maybe be like, why did you put them in this game?
Exactly.
Focus their energy on that one player.
Yes. Correct. So.
And then like a personal example is like, I'm really bad at shooters. I have some friends that are way better than me at them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the idiot that shouldn't be in that game in that case. Basically.
Sure. So, again, right? In some ways, and it makes perfect sense why this is true. Video games don't really they dehumanize very often.
Yeah,
because of the anonymity. The anonymity hides certain things. You don't really see the person on the other end as a human being. You see them as an in-game nickname, and that's all you know. Yeah. You just see their name and you just see what they do, and that's what you operate from. That's all the knowledge you have. So it's very easy to not be empathetic and to not express understanding and to instead just make silly comments based on very little information about the other person. So in a way, this actually comes down to empathy in many ways. So if you are empathetic towards other people, you are going to have a better understanding of like, hey, maybe I don't know everything about them. Maybe saying these things that I want to say isn't really going to help them to achieve the results that I would like them to have for my own benefit. Like, even if we disregard it, for their own sake, if we just think about ourselves selfishly, even if we are selfish, we would rather want to express understanding, because usually when you argue with people, arguing doesn't really convince the other person. And I think you know this to be true as well.
Yes.
Arguing is something that politicians do to convince a third party, not each other. That's never the reason for arguing. And if you think arguing is for that purpose, then you don't know exactly why you are arguing in the first place. Because the better way to convince another person is to really not try. Yeah, it's listen to them. Exactly. Express understanding. Express a level of empathy that is very often unheard of. Because today, in today's society, we aren't really too understanding of each other. Like very often you see examples of people not listening to each other, not hearing each other out. And so if you can, do that, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to understand other people and to also help them. That's part of the reason why I do coaching, because I know that if I were to just insult you and just hurl like arguments against you to prove that you are wrong and I'm right, it would not have nearly the same amount of impact in terms of convincing you to change your behavior. You know what I mean?
It feels so good to be right.
Yes, so that's another thing, right? It feels good to be right. Now, see, here's where we sort of get into another thing, which is that right is oftentimes relative, yeah. It's often very relative. Think of it like this. Easy example. Remember when we used to think the Earth was flat? No, I don't think so, because you haven't actually been in those times. That was no. Like back in the medieval times, when we used to think the Earth was flat. The reason why that sounds ridiculous to us now is because there was a paradigm shift in our way of thinking.
Yeah.
The paradigm shift resulted in us realizing that what we thought was right is actually not right. It's actually not the best option. There is something much more correct out there. And the reason why I say much more correct and not correct, just point blank, is because even now there could still be a paradigm shift waiting to happen. At any moment, we could realize something within science that completely shifts everything again, like it did back then. Now,
exactly.
Is that likely to happen? No, of course not. Because we have a lot of evidence to show that, yeah, this is basically how it is. This is basically the paradigm that we're in.
But you can't predict something that you have no understanding.
Exactly. You cannot tell me something that you don't know. Like, I can't ask you questions to get you to tell me things that you don't even know to begin with. Because that's just not how it works. So
I could lie.
Yeah, exactly. You could lie, or you could fabricate something out of nowhere, and maybe
that
you're
doesn't
right.
Help anyone.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the thing to realize: whether you think you're right or not, there's probably a better answer out there than the one that you provided, or the one that you think is true. No matter
statistically, you're not the best informed person about that thing.
Exactly. So being right about something, egotistically, yeah, it feels good because it affirms that, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. The other person doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm sort of in a position of knowledge. I have the knowledge, but they don't. That feels very good. I feel it's validating to have that. But logically speaking, there's no such thing as being right, essentially. The entire concept is ego-driven for the most part. Yes, you can infer certain things, and you can say anecdotally that, yeah, for me personally, these things have worked. These things have shown to be right for me, from my own experience. Now, that's very different from saying, this is true. I'm right. I'm certain that I know for a fact that this is the right answer. That's very different. Two different ways to go about it. So the answer here, be open to the idea that you probably are incorrect in some aspects, at the very least.
You might be right in X situation, but not quite in Y situation.
There's probably a better answer, or a better philosophy than the one you have. And the idea behind this is that you can never be certain, or you should. Yeah. Being certain of something means you can't grow. Because when you express that I know this, that's also implying that there isn't anything to learn in that area. That's why Socrates, the famous quote, the only thing I know is that I know nothing. And that is sort of a abstraction of this idea right here, which is that whether you think you're right or not, there's probably a better idea out there that we haven't discovered yet as a human species. And in another way, it's actually liberating, because this means that it's okay to be wrong. And in fact, you shouldn't aim to be right. You should aim to be less wrong than you were yesterday. That's the difference. So the solution is never aim to be 100% right, or think you are 100% right. Aim to be less wrong today than you were yesterday.
Yeah.
So that's for that. Yeah. So
that also goes more into personal life, but like that is valuable, and it is something that has led to issues with me. I tend to be on the argumentative side.
Right. And has that helped you in convincing people of what you want them to believe?
Well, realizing when I'm going down this road and backing out of it does help. But not realizing that has led to, talking my friends' ears off until they get pissed and walk away. Cool down. So, that's a thing.
Yeah, to your debate. So
I watched a video. I watched a Dr. K video about conversation, and this topic really comes up a lot in that.
Yeah.
And since watching that, I've really been practicing, like on a close friend, because with them, if I say something stupid, it's probably okay because we know each other. But like I practice, instead of raising my point, first clarifying my understanding of their point, like asking if I have the right understanding of what they just said. And that helps me avoid arguing with them.
Right. Now, let's actually nail this down. I think that this right here sort of also, these two are connected right here, because it sort of plays off of the same idea that you feel in some ways entitled to seeing progress. You feel that because I put in X amount of effort, I should see my rank go up. Y. By Y amount. Or whatever.
Right. So
tell me, why is this true? Why do you how is this true?
So I'm going to start with like a more scientific or mechanical reason. I've mentioned that I likely have ADHD, but either way, I have the understanding that to me personally, like concrete rewards are especially valuable. Like if you tell me I'll get something in a month for doing this thing, I don't care. If I do this thing and you immediately like give me a handshake and tell me how good I did, how good a job I did, that feels very good.
Yes.
So like more so than it would affect another person, those rewards are extremely driving. So I kind of can't ignore these concrete rewards, and they skew how I feel about things. I have to pay attention to the reward. I can't ignore it.
So, okay. That's okay. We're stepping forward here. Why does the reward matter to you? As in, so we've nailed down that. So it sort of falls into sort of the same question being asked here as well. So why do you care about this? Because LP, just to be clear, LP isn't the end goal. LP leads towards something, and that something is rank. So automatically our question becomes now, why do you care about rank? Because by extension, that is where you're heading when you think about LP as a reward.
Actually, instead of going into that, more on why the reward matters, it's more of a motivation thing. Because motivation part to that.
Sure.
If I get a reward from playing League, I will be more motivated to keep playing League.
Yes, that is generally true.
And I guess, but the thing there is that motivation matters to me because I'm trying to get somewhere with League.
Right. Correct. You're heading somewhere, and I want to understand where that somewhere is.
Okay. So for the rank, yes, like I definitely do care about the rank, and part of that is, I have a very service level results driven goal, which is achieving X rank, and currently it's sort of basically diamond. Like that's kind of the the real beginning.
Okay.
It's kind of, like that's the thing everyone dreams about when they play ranked in League is getting diamond.
What is it about diamond that allures you? What makes you want to do it?
I guess one thing is like prestige. Very few people reach diamond in League. It's like top 1%.
Prestige.
Or maybe even less than 1%.
So
you're special if you get there.
Right. Oh, okay. You're special if you get there. Cool. Great. I agree. I can accept that these are reasons. But now let's actually dive into what this actually means. Because usually when we talk about prestige and feelings of being special and such, that is external. What that means is it's for the sake of other people noticing that. So now the question now becomes, okay, why do you care about what other people think of you based on your rank? Why does the rank matter for the sake of getting the approval of others? Because that is where, like, in the same way that LP extends now to rank now extends to approval from others. So let's go from there. Why do you care about the approval of others?
I think there's an internal aspect to both of these for me, but I will start with the external part.
Yes.
Well, I guess one example is like when players are talking about who to look to for an example of doing something really fun in League. Like, question, like it's often asked in the Resolve Discord, who should I watch to get better at this skill? And like, I think it would be cool to be the answer to one of those kinds of questions. Oh, you want to see a really good RA mid player? Watch Rex. And that possibility only exists after reaching Diamond Plus, because you're not good enough to be worth answering that question with until you get there. Even if maybe fundamentals, maybe you're very good at some specific thing. People just don't care until you're at the rank they want to get to themselves.
Okay. Go on. Anything else?
Another thing is like ranked rewards. So there's one time, only one opportunity to get unique rewards that depend on your rank. Like,
Yep.
You can only get diamond in a particular season one time.
Yep.
And it's kind of it's like a trophy of past success when you have that. And that's more of an internal thing. Like,
so
I want a trophy wall. I want a trophy wall of things I've succeeded for my own benefit. Just to remind myself I've done them.
I want to be able to look back at getting diamond as a success. Interesting. So, like a trophy wall. Here's the interesting thing for you to understand. The stages model is for improving. That's the main reason that we give.
Yep.
But at a certain point, if you follow the stages process and you do it correctly, and you do follow it, like, and you make sure to stick to it, and you're diligent, and you're not straying away from it and doing other shit, you should climb.
Yeah.
Like,
I've internalized that this improvement process is a vector to me achieving this goal.
yes.
And so I understand intuitively I need to focus on it, but it's still hard.
So the thing is that the internal component can be answered if you aren't reaching the rank you want. It just means you're not good enough yet.
Doesn't mean you won't be.
It doesn't mean you won't be.
It's
That's
hard.
why I say yet. Huge
Yeah.
emphasis on this word. Yet.
Yeah. That's
Huge
something that
emphasis.
tends to come out in, like, when I'm especially tilted, I say things like, I'll never be good enough, or
Ah.
I am, like, there's even like a little bit of an imposter syndrome thing when I get particularly frustrated, like, I'm actually worse than I seem. I could even go the other way, like, I should be at a lower rank than I am. I say things like that
Ooh.
when I'm very frustrated.
Ooh.
I start throwing things away.
I feel like I should be lower rank than I am, because it seems like I play worse than my rank. This goes into confidence, actually. This is another thing that Jared Tendler talks about in the book. It's actually there's a specific section dedicated to just this. So this is over and under confidence. The easy solution is to look through the games that you think you did poorly in, and actually because the thing is, the reason you go off of what seems to be true is because you are basing your judgment of your skill on your emotions, not on facts.
Yep. I'm often very irrational in these moments. I'm not thinking with logic, I'm thinking with emotions.
Exactly. And
I'm angry. What's the problem? The problem is that I suck. Or some other unreasonable answer is what comes up because I'm angry.
And that's where logic injections come in. And logic injections are ways for you to, despite being angry, to still sort of calm yourself down. And when that no longer... Yeah, go ahead.
Right. I wrote down some examples of logic injections I can try, but obviously...
You need to verify that they work. Yeah.
I will learn a lot by trying them. I'll find that I might need more detail to them or different ones, or etc.
Another important thing to understand about logic injections is that they are not solutions. They are tools to help you when you feel those things. However, the actual solution is to have one of these coaching sessions where we actually talk about the deeper reasons behind things, because that's how we can get to the bottom of what's actually going on. The logic injections are just useful tools to help you keep performing well and sort of maintain a level of performance, a level of consistency. So, go ahead.
He also, Jared also made it sound like, well, it doesn't directly address the problem. You do chip away at it a little bit each time. Like, it's not the solution, but it does lead to some progress. But yeah, you're right. Actually talking about figuring out and understanding the problem is more valuable.
Why is the rank the metric of success? Because, for one, we can say that if you aren't at a certain rank, that means that you haven't gotten good enough. On a surface level, that's a fair assessment. Like, if you are going through the stages, you should, at some point, climb up.
Right.
Without any issue. And if that isn't happening, then there's probably something else going on that's hindering you from being able to do that. And that's where you obviously VOD review and look through things. You look through things with a coach and have them sort of tell you, hey, okay, these are the things you need to work on, like we're doing right now. So that is like the solution to that. But then we also have to talk about why is this even a metric of success? Because rank is something that is outside of your control, right? Like we can
Right.
nail down the facts. So facts are rank is outside your control. Teammates, enemies, random events, etc.
Rather, my control over it is limited because
Yes.
I'm only one player out of 10 in each game.
Direct control, better way to phrase it. So you can't directly control the game. You can influence it, but you can't directly control it.
Right.
Other things to mention is that rank cannot be used to point at something and say, to point at a skill and say, I'm X rank, so I must be good at this.
Yeah. It's the other way. You're at X rank because you are good at this and executed good at that
Yes.
over a large number of games. And I think that gets into why I'm placing it. I've been putting it as a metric of success. It takes a long time to establish a rank. So it's validated to some extent by that. You had to be good at that for a lot of games to actually get that rank. So it makes it more concrete. It doesn't instantaneously
Yes.
point to your success, but at the end of the season,
Yes.
it can.
Rank is, well, see, the thing is that rank can't really be used as a metric. I think you can't really use it as a metric neither in the short term or long term, but it can definitely be a result of, it's a byproduct of you doing something. Yeah, that's the correct way to sort of phrase it. It's like,
Okay.
Because like we said, right, you can't use a rank to give a metric towards your CS or your trading or your clicks or whatever.
You have to look at the stats directly.
Yeah, and you have to VOD review. Like even better, you have to actually VOD review and sit down and look. That's how you actually get an accurate image of how good you are.
Okay.
Which, by the way, who could have known, this also solves confidence. Because a lot of people don't VOD review. A lot of people generally try to look at OPGGs and use that as a metric for how well they are doing. If they see blue,
look at that.
Yeah. If they see blue, then they think, "Oh, I'm doing well." If they see red, then fuck, I'm such a bad player. I'm losing every game. Oh my god. And
that's the thing. I tend to only look at it when I already know it's going to be blue.
There we go.
Also, I wanted to jump on a thing that I think gets a bit into fear. I don't VOD review. Like, I guess one thing is I'm afraid to see my bad performance.
But why are you afraid of it?
I don't like watching it back because I already knew I made a lot of mistakes that game. I don't want to see them again. Even if I know there's something I could learn from them, I have this aversion to having to experiencing them a second time.
Can you explain a bit more why that is?
Well, I guess, again, I had to re-experience the mistake. I had to see myself being stupid or whatever was wrong a second time. So I re-experienced some of the emotions tied to that. Yeah, this is kind of like a double catch. Like, I won't VOD review when I did well because I feel like there's nothing to review.
if I did well, or it seemed like I did well, Then I won't VOD review because there's nothing to look at. Why? Why is this a thing?
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of like it.
What do you connotate? By the way, before we even continue, we have to understand the definition here. So, what do you define as playing well? Is it your KDA? Is it your damage at the end of the game? What is it that you connotate as like this is what defines whether I did well or did not do so well?
So, I mean, last time I was playing, I was focused on the stages, so it was mostly to do with how well I did with the stages. Like, if I had good CS and had a lot of good trades, because I'm stage 2, I get good CS and took a lot of good stage 2 style trades, then you're like, I did it. But like, I can already see the flaw in that, because even if I am getting some good stage 2 trades, did I take every one that I could? Did I miss some that?
Yep. There you go.
I could have.
Yes.
There's still mistakes to look at, even when I meet the benchmarks. Just because I meet the benchmarks doesn't mean I didn't make any mistakes.
See, here's where it gets a bit tricky, because what the adult learning model sort of defines as unconscious competence is to be able to do something competently without thinking. Keyword here is competently, because what a lot of people tend to do is they mischaracterize their performance as being competent, and because they aren't thinking about it, then they think, oh, I am in UC, when in reality, they haven't actually got.
They're not thinking about it because they're bad at it.
Yeah. So actually, you are in UI. You're in unconscious incompetence on certain aspects. So if there's a thing, there are certain aspects within this thing that are in UI still. And you need to also pass them through the entire sort of pyramid until they eventually also reach UC.
Yeah, because I'm very new to stage 2. I was very new to it when I started working on it.
Yes.
I probably simply did not even notice trade
Exactly.
windows.
And
or just dismissed them so quickly because I was so inexperienced.
Yes. And so because you were very quick to dismiss it and move on to the next game, you're very quick to not VOD review at all, and you find rationalizations to just not VOD review and keep playing. That's what keeps you here, where you are standing.
Right.
And because of these rationalizations, mentally you are trapped. Because right now, the only way to get out is if you VOD review. But in order to VOD review, you have to acknowledge that it's okay to perform poorly. But in order to acknowledge that it's okay to perform poorly, you have to also be okay with the fact that people won't necessarily think that you did a good job. You have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with all these things simultaneously. And all of these things combined, everything that we've sort of gone over in this entire thing here, culminates in this sort of mental prison. It's keeping you here while at the same time justifying its own existence for you being here. All of these beliefs that you have are simultaneously working together like a fucking machinery. It's almost magical how it works.
Labyrinth.
Yeah. So because of the fact that you cannot look back because it feels bad to re-experience your bad performance, because you have a poor relationship with when you perform poorly, because again, you emotionally, logically, you can admit that there's a C game in your gameplay. Emotionally, you can't. Emotionally, this feels bad to admit that there's a C game. Because of this, everything
so
sort
when
of...
I'm in a C game...
Yes.
The C game is when I feel that way.
Yes.
So it's kind of... I get very stuck.
Yes.
And yeah, I guess that could explain why, once I get tilted, I am screwed up. I don't want to do anything that day. Still feel like shit the next morning. Even if I've, forgotten about it and think I feel better, the moment the game starts, I miss the first CS and oh, wait a minute, I am not okay yet. So yeah, it sticks around for a long time when I get tilted.
So let's answer this question. We have all the facts, but I want your reasoning. Why is the rank a metric of success for you internally? Like we're going about it like internally. So I'm not talking about in the sense that it's like making you look good in front of other people. I'm talking about the internal reasons. So just to make that the difference there clear. So why is it for you personally a metric of success?
I'm not really sure how to answer that. Like,
okay, how is it a metric of success then? In that case, how does it work? Like how does this belief function? I want to understand the function of this belief. How does it work?
well, I guess I kind of already told you like how it takes a long time to establish a rank. I'm putting value in it.
Takes a long time.
Personal value on it because of how long it takes to achieve a high rank. Even if you are good, it still takes a long time. So there's like a value from time investment thing.
Makes sense. What else can you think of? What else? How else does this work besides the fact that you have like an intrinsic value from spending time on it?
It's a very easy metric to get. Like, it's pretty much one thing.
It's right in front of you.
Yes, it's a very simple piece of information. It would be hard. It would be more accurate to review all of your individual stats over a game with a VOD review, but it takes a lot more effort to get that answer. Rank is you glance at it and you have an answer. It's easy.
And see, the thing is here, a lot of people, like I said here, rank can also be achieved through other means, like abusive play. For example, typical one would be Darius level 2 going all in with Flash Ghost. Just all inning with 5 stacks, and because he knows that he's stronger, he wins. Or you are going for random trades, hoping that they work, and they will work because they catch the other person off guard and they don't know how to play against it. You win more because you kill the other guy, and by killing the other guy, you set them behind, which generally tends to lead to you winning more games. Right. You could do the same thing with the stages. You could beat people with the stages, which will
take more effort.
Yeah, it takes more effort. Exactly. There we fucking go. So already here, I'm starting to see an emerging sort of belief here, which is that you feel like you are already putting in a lot of effort, and putting in more effort feels really fucking bad because there are people out there who don't have to put in any effort and will still reach the rank that you want to reach.
Or they'll just pay someone.
Exactly. So the solution here, or the answer here, is that because you've already put in so much effort in your own biased view, you feel less inclined to put in even more effort into VOD reviewing and doing all those things.
I guess it's like a sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah.
I'm avoiding putting more into it because of how much I've already put in an inappropriate situation. Here it's more like, I'm so close to the amount of effort needed to really improve. Why am I not adding just that little bit more?
Good questions. These are really good questions to ask ourselves. So, I like this sunk cost fallacy. It's like a recursive sunk cost.
Yeah. So like, it's actually sunk cost fallacy when you have not enough information.
But you do.
You can't know. But I do have enough information to know I'm that close.
You just don't look at it. You just don't want to look at it because of this right here.
Yes. It's fake is being that close and choosing not to anyway.
Exactly. So already there, we are starting to see that, yeah, actually, the reason why you are looking at rank as a metric is because it protects you from admitting to yourself that you actually need to put in more effort than you're already doing right now. It protects you. It's like a pad.
Yeah.
It's like a padding for your ego to like say, yeah, I know I'm putting in so much effort, man. I'm spending all this time spamming out games. I've played this game for so many years, man. I should be getting this rank. Why am I not at this rank? It's so unfair. Other people get this rank and they only play for like a year, and meanwhile I'm stuck here where I am. Yeah, that's because
life is unfair.
Yeah,
some people have to put in more effort.
Yeah.
So what?
And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. And you shouldn't feel bad to put in more effort than you're already doing. In fact, you should do it. You should put in more effort. If you can, and you're choosing not to put in effort, that's definitely, that's a problem. That means that, okay, you need to really investigate. Okay, why am I not putting in effort? I can. I have the ability to do it. I have the information right at my fingertips if I choose to look at it. But I choose not to.
Yeah. I guess digging into that a little bit. So, like the last time I was playing, I would typically get in my 2 or 3 games a day, and then I'd be all leagued out. Like after that, I'm tired of thinking about the game. So, like at that moment, I'm not ready to take a VOD review because I'm already tired out from the game. So then I never find a place to do it because
and that
the time
back
when
to
I'm
methodology.
aware of it, the time when I'm aware of it is when I'm too tired to do it. Even though I could do it at a different time and it would still be valuable. Maybe I should play less games so that I have energy left at VOD review.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. You're right. You are spot on. So, because you would rationalize to yourself why, it's not the right time to VOD review, it's not right after the game, my analysis isn't going to be accurate, I don't have the energy, I'm not going to do it right now, I can't do it, I'm too tired. Because of these things, it compounds on itself, and more like an afterthought, you justify why you do that to yourself.
It's almost automatic. Like, it's almost to the point where I don't even consciously make this decision. I'm just done.
Right.
And so I don't even think about doing it. But there is still a decision happening there. And that decision is to not even try to think about whether I should VOD review.
Everything that we do as human beings can be you can sort of trace it back to a habit, core habits. So even though you maybe don't think that this is a habit, like brushing your teeth, it is still a habit. The way that you handle emotions, the way that you handle setbacks, the way that you handle, like the way you feel, all of that, if you compound it for a long enough time and you do the same thing over and over again, that's a habit by definition.
Yep.
So if you do this for a long time, you will create reasons to mask this, to rationalize why you keep doing this, so that your mind stays where it is. And this is actually really scary in some ways, because the way our mind is sort of set up is our mind is very resistant to change.
Yeah. It's very hard to fix this because it's so ingrained not to fix it.
Exactly.
Like, I have thousands of games of sample size.
Yes.
Of having this inappropriate view.
Yes. So that's also why I think a lot of people don't necessarily have free will. And I'm not saying that because it's their fault. I'm saying that it's because they are unaware. Awareness is key. When you become aware of something, when you become aware of your belief, you can change your belief. When you become aware of a habit, you can change the habit. Awareness is key in everything. That's why meditation, I think, is such a staple practice. Everyone should do meditation, I think. That's my personal point of view.
I guess that's kind of a related thing. I am not interested in meditation, even though there's enough data to show that it might be valuable.
Yes.
And I'm willing to accept that I could be convinced otherwise, but in my current state, I have this weird feeling about meditation, and I'm not that interested in doing it.
Why is that? Why are you not interested?
Mm.
Something to think about. Not saying that you should
Yeah.
or shouldn't do it, because at the end of the day,
Right.
it's your decision. But I'm saying,
Right.
if you are just accepting that belief that you have as at face value, then you are doing yourself a disservice by not understanding yourself better. And that's not my selfish desire. That's a desire that I have for you to learn more about yourself. If you can
Right.
understand
Yeah.
yourself, then that will help you do so many things. Not even just league
Yeah.
stuff, but just in general. Master
That's why
thyself, master your enemy.
that's why I mentioned that I'm willing to have that standpoint changed, because I understand that there is value in me accepting meditation. But I don't 100% know how to answer why I'm averse to it. Maybe one thing is like I want to say ridiculousness, but like I don't know what like Dr. K often has a meditation session at the end of his videos, and
Yeah.
it's not a silent thing. He somehow gamifies it, like you make a noise or have a weird pose or something, and doing that feels ridiculous. I can't bring myself to do that because it feels so unnatural to make that action. And I guess there could be like a social thing, like I guess an example, like in high school, one of my teachers had this thing of hand sanitizers, and it became like a ritual for all the students, like coming into the class or leaving class or whatever, would go to the hand sanitizer and pick one of the scents and put it on their hands, like a purely social ritual. And after seeing that, I decided that I wanted nothing to do with the hand sanitizer
Right.
and never ever participated in that ritual, not even once. It felt unnatural to participate in that.
Yeah.
I decided it was weird, so I avoided it.
And you didn't necessarily question why you thought it was weird. It just felt weird.
Yeah, pretty much. And like thinking back, that would have been socially the better move, is to participate.
Yeah. That's actually something we can go over, not now, but in another session. I think that so far, though, we've basically nailed down everything. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel like it's pretty much like you've pretty much like gotten all of it out? Like we've pretty much gone over everything, at least regarding tilt.
Yeah, for tilt, I think pretty much as I'm going to be able to get out at this point, anyways.
Yeah, as you can see. So yeah, this is definitely, as you can see, a very involved process, but it helps to nail down things.
Yeah.
It's very similar to how sort of Dr. K does it. He often asks a lot of sort of whys and hows and such, those type of questions. So, in any case, though, do you have anything else you want to ask? Anything else you want to bring up?
So what I'm really wondering about is like next steps, like I don't know, homework or something like that.
Homework. Well, I mean, there isn't really homework. It's just that you need to now see that this is okay. This is a thing. I am valuing rank because it's the easiest thing I can do, and it's easier than to accept that I need to put in more effort. So what I would recommend doing is to journal, think about this, and, process this, go through this, because now we've nailed down the reasoning behind why all of this, and also why a lot of this also exists. It all sort of comes back to this fallacy that I shouldn't be I shouldn't put in so much effort if I've already put in a lot of effort, like you put it. I mean, I think the way you put it as the sunk cost fallacy, that definitely is a very valid and accurate description of what it is. It's the fallacy to think that this is a sunk cost fallacy.
Yes.
So, there isn't really homework in terms of verbal sessions. Verbal sessions are just there to help you figure out what's really going on. What is the deeper reason your own reason for why this is happening,
Right.
and what is the sort of solution? What is the answer to this belief that you have? That's why we sort of go down the chain of beliefs until we reach the bottom, and the bottom is
Okay.
here.
So really, like, the thing to do here is for me to take time to process this, and then when we approach it again,
Yeah,
maybe we'll be able to dig a little bit deeper.
sure, but also you can now apply this to your experience, and you can become aware of this.
Right.
So it can serve as sort of a reminder that, okay, I'm going into Champion Select right now. I have to remember that these people have no clue who I am. I have no clue who they are either. And they only know me based on just a few minutes.
Right.
They've only seen an OPGG, maybe a bit of statistics on my performance, and maybe my past few games, but that's about it. They know nothing else about me. And that's what you need to realize. You need to accept that they don't know everything about you.
So an action item for me would be to write out that self-talk to go through before playing League.
Yeah.
Talk myself through why I shouldn't be worried about all these things.
Yes.
And then by telling myself that before the game, it will be easier to remember that in the game. Even if not consciously, because I planted that idea in my head.
Yes.
I'm more likely to arrive to it.
Yes. Exactly. And on top of that, like you said, you already provided a lot of good solutions for this right here, this branch, which is to cut down on your games, spend more time mod reviewing, because that's where you improve. That's where you can figure out the question marks. The things that are in UI cannot be discovered unless you discover them, unless you look at them.
Right.
So that's the thing. In any case, though.
So, another action item then would be to change my schedule for playing League. Instead of trying to play X amount of games, try to play
as many games as you can.
Review a game.
Yeah.
Play a game, review a game. Something like that.
Yeah, and also to not
leave time for review.
Yeah, and not to set a quota on yourself for I need to play X amount of games. No. Instead, think about it more as sort of like a bar of stamina. You have X amount of stamina in a given day, and if you expend that stamina with just 2 games and 2 VODs, that's fine. That's completely fine.
Yeah. Yep.
You gained way more from this. I promise you, you will gain way more from this than from this.
Right. And that's less energy put in, too.
Yes.
2 games and 2 VOD reviews is easier than 6 games.
Yes, but it also concentrates your effort. Your entire stamina bar is now concentrated on these 2 games and these 2 VOD reviews, which generally leads to better performance, better improvement, because now you're concentrating effort.
So I could alternate games with VOD reviews, and then when I feel like I could do, after I felt like, okay, I probably shouldn't play another game, end there with a VOD review. Instead of playing my last game, end with a VOD review, if it feels like I can only do one more thing, basically. Something like that.
Yeah. And then, of course, there are other things that aren't necessarily tied to League, but they're more so just general stuff it's okay to be wrong, accept that you will be wrong. Even if you think you're right, you're probably still wrong in some ways. And that's fine. And also be okay that people will have different viewpoints, and you don't need to convince them of something. All you need to do is just understand. A good quote that I got from a friend is, there is no such thing as good or evil, only ignorance. So, the way that he explained it, and I think that this is fucking genius, is that good and evil are just mental constructs to justify whether you're on the right side or the wrong side.
Can you give me 1 sec?
Yes.
I'll be right back.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'm back now.
Yes. So, yeah. In any case, do you have any questions?
I think that's it, and we figured out what I can do actively after the session, and I don't know. And I guess I'll talk to you about having another session when I'm ready for it, or maybe just in a week, since we did have more to talk about.
Yes. And honestly, you don't need to We don't need to set any specific time. It's just when you feel ready, we can have another session.
All right. So I'll plan on asking you about it.
Yes.
Same day to next week, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Yes. And of course, like I said, take some time to process this stuff. These are things that take time. They aren't going to get solved overnight. It takes time to sort of work through emotions, and that's perfectly fine. Again, fixing habits that you have ingrained for a very long time is a very tough task. It's not impossible. It can be done. You just need to become aware of the habits and understand the reasons, the true reasons behind them, not the rationalizations that you give yourself. Like these things, prestige and you're special. Those are just masks for the deeper belief that is here. So it's very important to sort of not just look at the surface level reasoning of why you believe something, but also understand the deeper reason behind it.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. All right then. Have a good day. I hope that
Thanks.
you have a pleasant day, that you do well, and that this was helpful, and that you will see growth. Great.
Yep.
Have a good day. Bye bye.
Yep. You have a good day as well. Thank you.
Bye bye.